In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the front shocks on this Toyota Tacoma. Let's install these TRQ shocks. Let's remove the wheel. You can either use a thin wall 21mm socket or use a little pry bar screwdriver. Pull this cap off. Now you can use a regular size socket to get all the 5 21mm lug nuts off. With those off, remove the wheel. Let's start at the top. This is a 14mm mounting nut. I'm just going to start by using a power tool on it. Sometimes, if you have the ability to, if you just blast it off, it may come off. I already sprayed it with rust penetrant. If you have to, apply some heat. There it is. Remove the washer as well as the rubber. From underneath, you'll see two 12mm bolts. Remove both and then the shock should come down. Be careful on this last one because there won't be anything else holding the shock in place. Get the bolts out, and there's the shock. Now, before we install the new shock, I'm going to start it. That entails compressing it a few times. I like to put the mounting nut on, just a few threads, and then a socket. This gives a nice flatter area to press on, otherwise this will hurt your hand. And just go all the way down with it until it bottoms out, and then let it come back up by itself. I like to do this 3 to 5 times. This mixes in all the oils that are inside because it's been sitting on the shelf compressed. So you want to activate it or start it. Otherwise, if you don't do this, when you first go over bumps, you might hear some clunking just because it has some free play in there from sitting for quite a while. So once this is done, then we can install it. At the top, make sure you have the bottom washer that's facing up and one of the bushings on. That way it's ready to install, of course. I like to add some silicone paste here, or any rubber-friendly grease, really, so that the shaft doesn't seize up. And when you stick it in and through the control arm hole, you want to make sure that the bottom is facing the right way. If it's the other way, you'll never get it started here. So make sure you turn it, line it up at the top as you go through. And once you get it close here, if you have your bolts ready, you can start them on. If it doesn't get close here, it's because it needs to compress a little, so just push it up. There we go, I got one started. Yeah, that one's definitely started. At this point, we can put in the other one. Make sure you start these by hand. If they cross-thread and ruin the threads, well, you're going to have some tapping to do because the other side has a welded nut on there. All right, so those are both in. Let's snug them up. Just bottom them out. Now let's torque them. 29 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these bolts. That's one. And 2. At the top, add your bushing and then the washer. It's kind of bent over on the sides, make sure it's facing down, and then the new mounting nut. The new mounting nut is a 16mm in size. Just going to bottom this out. Okay, so the shock is spinning at this point, which means I have to hold on to the shaft of the shock here with some pliers and spin this with a wrench. I'm going to put my ratcheting wrench on here, and then a 6mm wrench is going to hold the stud. If you don't have a 6mm wrench, you can just use some pliers. Locking pliers would work best. And squish this down. And what you want to do is basically give these bushings a little bit of a squish. Don't crush them down completely, but once they squish down, make sure they're still centered. That's how you know the shock is properly tightened. You also want to have a little bit of pressure on the mounting nut. It is a locking nut, and at this point I'm getting pretty close to the bushing being the width of the washer. So probably a couple more turns right about here. This should be good. Any more than this, and over time it will prematurely crack and be damaged. So this is about where you want to stop. This does have a torque and it's 18 foot-pounds. However, what I would personally do is prioritize the looks of this bushing over the torque, because this is a locking nut, so it will stay, but if you crush these bushings too much, you will have them prematurely break, then you need to replace them. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and then also in a cross pattern, tighten them to 83 foot-pounds. Once again, 83 foot-pounds for all these lug nuts in a cross pattern. And if your truck had the center caps, go ahead and put these back on.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.